Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of the Beautifully Broken podcast. John Golden, welcome to the show.
Oh, pleasure to be here, Freddie.
We should have pushed record when we just started talking because that's one of my greatest lessons in life. Sometimes before you get going, it's just like there's magic in the room. And maybe that's not for everybody to share. Maybe it's just part of the conversation. But yeah, I'm excited to invite people in to where we're at this morning.
I think, Freddie, part of that is your personality. You get on, you have an infectious amount of energy. And I think, that's makes these topics very approachable. So I enjoy the conversations with you. So we jump right in.
Yeah. And our dog in the background, usually dogs affirm that we're on the right track. I find that to be true, our furry little friends. If we could start this morning, can we jump in to just we got on the call and you said, Freddie, I'm lucky I'm here. I died last week. And I sort of sat there for a second and I didn't know what to say. What happened in your week, John?
Yeah. So, I mean, to tell the story, I was preparing for a trip to San Diego and California, and I was supposed to fly out on a 3:00 flight to the West Coast, and my flight got canceled because of the government shutdown, and they rescheduled me on a different airline for later in the day, and I was like, oh, wow, I got moved from first class to row 20, middle row on a different plane. And I was like, and then they delayed my flight again for 11 o'clock at night. And I was sitting at the kitchen table and I was adjusting, kind of all the things you have to adjust when the flights change. And all of a sudden I felt a really sharp pain in my chest. And this was a pain I had never felt before. It was really intense. And it was followed by this kind of overwhelming feeling of not being able to breathe, right? And I didn't know what was going on. And I got up like I typically would do when I feel something, and I walked around the house, this little path I have. I come sit down, and I just felt worse. It just kept building. So I went to my spouse, and I said, hey, something's not right here. This is not good. Sharp pain, couldn't breathe, started moving down my arm. So we literally, I was in clothes that I would be working in the yard in. And I threw on my son's shoes. We took off for the hospital, and, they have a great process. Next thing you know, I coded in the hospital, in the emergency room. They were able to resuscitate me after a couple attempts, and then I was wheeled in for surgery. And I had a full blockage of my what they call the Widowmakers. And I led a healthy life and hadn't any issues. And man, that rocked my world, right? So this time last week I was in intensive care, and today I'm feeling good though, feeling great.
Incredible. Modern medicine is incredible. I'm so glad you listened to your body and didn't hesitate. It's like, this is a great example where you didn't reach for the essential oils. You got in the car and you went to the ER.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly, a couple things I learned, right? You better have a good belief system, right? Number two, I've had a lot of chronic issues health-wise related to autoimmune in my family. And so I've always wanted to make sure. I've lived in this kind of fear of making sure I'm in great shape because I don't know what's going to come next. And so I'm so grateful that I was in great physical shape that I could rebound. But I was so impressed with the staff at the hospital. I mean, they knew they had this playbook and they knew what was happening, and they do it with such class. They make you feel, you're thinking like, oh, what's going to happen, and when you have a heart attack like that, not to get too graphic, but I'm in very sharp pain, and you're twitching and you're trying to explain what's going on. At the same time, you want to cure, and they put, one nitrous pill and a second nitrous pill and a third nitrous pill, and nothing's working. And you're having this fear like you're going to just die right there on the table. And so that's there's this strong emotional component to the pain component. And after you go I sat there and I said to my the team there and my spouse, and I said, wait a minute, I'm gonna black out. I'm feeling dizzy, literally. And from there they said, my eyes rolled back to my head and I fell back and blah blah blah. And, I woke up. I didn't know what happened, right? I didn't know I crashed. I woke up and, it's kind of not to get, kind of wonky with people, but I woke up and all of a sudden I didn't feel any pain. And I had this mask. I was trying to get orientated where I was. I had a mask on my face and they're pumping with oxygen and probably other stuff into my lungs. And I remember them calling my name and it was all white and clear and amazing. And then I responded, and then all of a sudden the pain came right back, screaming back. And they're like, John, we got to take you right now to the surgery. So, but the way they orchestrate that is incredible, right? So, yeah, so I'm grateful. I'm always grateful, but I'm very grateful today to be here. And my cardiologist shared with me that the emotional part of this is as difficult or is more difficult to get over than the physical. You're in good shape. Luckily, my heart's in great shape. Everything's good. Rhythm came back. Everything. I'm very fortunate for that. And but now it's kind of the emotional part. Nobody wants me to leave the room without them watching me, right?
Yeah. What what does this week like to sit with that brush with mortality? And you're right back on a podcast. Like, what has changed in this week, if anything?
Oh, I do a lot of thinking. It's you go so quickly. I come home and you see your dogs and you're thinking, wow, I got to see them again, right? My son's a college football player and his team has been very successful. And it was senior day, yes, on Saturday, right? Their last home game of the regular season. And I got to see that, right? And I'm like, wow, he might have been at a funeral instead of me being there, And so I've really have tried to be more present. At the same time, I know there's always things that you want to focus on. What's the priorities, right? And I believe in being transparent and sharing messages with people. We can all learn from each other, and I don't know what all those messages are for me right now. I'm asking myself lots of questions,
Mhm.
lots of questions. Like, is this how I should be spending my time? How do I, what are those things that you'd love to do, and should I be doing them? Because you don't know if you get another chance, right?
Mhm.
Um, so at the same time, I don't want to overreact. So that's about, I'm being as raw here because it's real time. That's what I'm processing through.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having the presence and the strength to be with us on the show today. I'm so grateful that we're here. I had no idea any of this was happening. I feel so much empathy in my heart. I can feel my heart. My heart has like an empathetic contraction or hug towards you right now on the show. I
Yeah.
can feel it. Yeah. I think about this all the time. I think about it. I was driving home yesterday, John, and I came to a light, and there's a grocery store down the street. There's a Sprouts where I always go shopping, and the light, it's a very bad light. And I'm going to say I've seen 20 accidents there. And at this point, the light is it's just dusted with this green glass where all the windshields and glass from these cars have been shattered. And every time I go through it, I look at the glass and I was like, man, somebody's life changed there. That's not glass. The millions of intersecting stories, whether it's the ER, whether it's the first responders, whether it's the police that are going in there, coming in there, and they're helping to hold somebody's life would probably change pretty dramatically, because there are always these bad accidents, a terrible blind spot. Every time I go through it, I was like, I have this moment of, we never know. I may feel stressed. I want to get home and get I'm cooking dinner because we're coming out of a 24-hour fast for my partner. And I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, go slow. You have nowhere to be in the moment, relish the process of creating this. You don't need to rush to be to the meal. Maybe just relish in the process so you guys get to eat a meal together. Every week I have these moments where I'm just like, oh God, it's good to be in a body. It's good to be functional. It's good that I can walk. It's good that I'm eating food, let alone, the daily gratitude, which comes from, well, I can eat food and I can go to the bathroom. It's all the simple things that it's a daily washover of this extreme gratitude that I get to keep doing this. And it becomes, for me, it cuts the tether of, I have to make impact in this life. I have to change the world. It's all this stuff outside of myself, right? It really does bring me back home when I have that experience.
Yeah, that's very well said. Yeah, you become very reflective. Having that good foundation. I grew up in a world that was like always, you got to prove yourself, you got to work hard, and it's about making sure everything's right for everybody, and it puts a lot of pressure and demands, and uh, maybe you don't reflect on enough like what's really important. I mean, I look at this last week, and the things that I wouldn't have said to you, I would have said my spouse was an amazing partner, right? But she was amazing in the calmness in the reality. We're driving in the car. It's about a 12-15 minute ride to the hospital. And she's trying to navigate traffic, get me there. And the conversation her and I were able to have was an amazing conversation in that few minutes. The things that we could share. I those little words that we said to each other and the things that we said were so powerful. I come home and my youngest son, right? The impact that this had on him, he's 22 years old. And I know this spooked him this severely. So, you understand that connection, because last week I'm saying, hey, why aren't you got your room clean? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you? And we don't always fully appreciate the connectedness that we have with each other. And I'm observing that, realizing that this week, and now trying to figure out, how do I respect that better?
Mm-hmm. Life is such a gift. You mentioned that your son is a football player. It sounds like 22. It's probably in college ball, correct?
Yeah.
That's great. And now, you had a football career as well?
Correct. Yeah, I played linebacker. He's a big offensive lineman, but I played linebacker. Yeah. He's had a lot
Amazing.
more success. His I'll give a shout out to his team. It's North Central College. Last year they won the D3 national championships, and they're undefeated this year, #1 ranked, going for it again. So proud of it's amazing. Coach Spencer and his team do an amazing job of this process. If I look at the way they play and the way they practice, and for me, I played on the old AstroTurf, right? So we had turf burns and got all beat up, and my football career ended in an injury. So
Yeah. And tell the audience, maybe, if you will, a little bit about your story with professional football and the injuries, and what was your body like after going through that defensive lineman career?
yeah, so for me, I think I was put on this earth originally to be a football player. I love football, and I had the fortune to play for the school, Northern Illinois, and anyways, my football career ended on the field. I had a horrific knee injury where somebody grabbed my ankle, somebody else hit my kneecap, my toe met my shoulder, and no longer had a patella in my right knee, and or my femoral head was all messed up. So think about the mechanical parts and things that you were put in. This is in the mid 80s. Okay. I have subsequently had 4 revisions to that over these years when they put some sort of metal components in a knee. In those days, they expect to last 10, 15 years, but they're putting them in 70-year-old guys, not 20-year-old guys. I was 21. So what really transformed for me, though, is that was the end of my career as a football player. I was a math major and decided, okay, I can't play football anymore. So I went into my professional career. And I went through all the rehab that you'd go through to make sure I had the biggest quads in the world, right? They'd always say, build your quads up. I remember I used to have to buy pants that had, bigger, they were bigger on me because I could get my thighs in them. But what happened was, I went into my professional career and my knee, my other knee started to give me trouble, my left knee. And it was wearing, right? So you'd go in and they'd do a scope on that. And then they do another scope and they're like, yeah, well, and then pretty soon it's bone on bone. Right. And then the next thing that transpired was that it was extraordinarily painful, my left side. And I ended up having to have that knee needed to be replaced. And it was and I'm like, how did I get here? Like, I've got the right knee. What happened to my left knee? Right. And what I learned was that, I had a tremendous amount of compensatory movement patterns, right, that I had developed over the years to compensate for the right knee. It changed the way I walk. So my femur and my tibia on my left leg didn't work like it's supposed to. Instead, my femur would pound on my tibia all the time. And that's what wore the cartilage down, eventually wore down the tibia. And I ended up having this revolutionary transplant and had human bone put in for my tibia, femur, and the cartilage in that joint. I learned about the compensatory movement patterns after I had all this surgery. And I'm talking 20 plus surgeries. I learned like, oh, wow. Right. And that learning transformed my life. Right. That changed my career trajectory. It changed the way I looked at everything. The story I would tell you is that when I was going to they wanted to put a metal rod in my left leg, and they were asking me what angle I wanted it at. And I'm like, we've got to do something different than this, right? There's got to be something more. I'm in my late 30s at the time. And I said to the doctor, you're telling me what I can't do, because he literally told me to go buy a ranch because I'd never do stairs again. And I'm like, what can I do? And he literally didn't have an answer other than to have this surgery. So I left his office and I didn't know who to call. I didn't know what to do, but I reached out. I said, okay, let me create a list of who's the top doctors in the world around this area of knees and transplants. And I went around the country to different places all over the world. And I stayed in the United States, but ended up on this one procedure that I was able to have. And it changed everything. I finally broke out of my family. We grew up about only, do what the doctor exactly tells you what to do. Right. And I wasn't even telling the doctor what I really wanted to do. I just wanted him to fix it, him or her to fix it. I finally learned how to communicate what is my goal. I want to be able to do what with my kids. I want to do what with my life. How do I want to move? How do I want to live my life? And then have somebody that we could be a team together and figure out the right strategy that would get us there, right? We'd come in partnership, sharing the risk, sharing the responsibility, do the work together as a team and solve it. And that's what I was able to do with my left leg. And that led me on the journey that, just totally transformed my life.
Now you said tissue transplant.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that procedure like? What did they do for you that was not the metal rod?
Yeah. So what I got was meniscal. And so meniscus transplant, chondrofemoral cartilage transplant, right? So they basically rebuilt the joint from a donor tissue, donor leg.
Wow. And are there physical limitations? Like, is there something you can or cannot do, or do you feel like today you're like fully functional?
Well, who is ever fully functional? That's the way I look at it.
How do we
I
define functionality? It's good. It's a good one.
yeah. So this is to get a little bit through the story for you. What I tell people is the list of what I can do is a lot longer than what I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I can do the things. I mean, I usually say, okay, well, I climbed Mount Everest on it, so I think it works. You know what I mean? That's usually the way I can move at it. Yeah, I mean, there's certain limitations, right? So anytime I'm open chain, if you open chain, it can dislocate. The joint can dislocate. So that's most common if I'm swimming. So I've done a couple like triathlons, and it'll dislocate in the middle of the swim, which is never easy. But it's the doctors did an amazing job. The therapists, the folks that helped me through this whole process. It's a whole team. Yeah, I mean, I can get around very well. If you had somebody who has a bad knee, I'm a little better than them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and Mount Everest is quite a feat after a lower leg transplant. That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm looking behind you in your screen. For everybody who's watching this on video, most people are going to listen to it. 98%. There's a little headset there, called Vital Neuro that I have been using. I had I tell you the story that one of my buddies, Skylar, he is like he's a veteran. His zone of genius is biofeedback, and he said, I'm always asking him, I'm like, hey, this is something I want to invest in. I want to up my meditation game. I want to be able to use this wandering mind that, again, as an excitable individual, it's literally this morning, I'm like going in, I'm doing the podcast, I'm posting a thing, and all of a sudden I'm drawn, and then I'm like paying a bill over here. And for me to stay focused, that's like where the money is. I do so much better in life. And he called me and he's like, no, this one's good. This one's $40,000. This one's 10 grand. You're not going to get anything for under this price point. And one day he called me out of the blue. He said, Freddie, you got to try this Vital Neuro. He's like, somebody finally did it right. They created a headset, which is taking a signal from the brain. It's using that in real time to offer a visual and a mental biofeedback element to really bring the brain into a state of higher functionality, like for under $800 or whatever the price was. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I reached out to your team and I was like, hey, can we partner? Can I get one? Can I try it? And they were like, we're so busy, not going to happen. I was like, great, I'm buying it. So I bought it and I literally used it. I went for like a 40-day streak, 3 meditations a day, and I can't to meditate now without it. It just don't get. It's nowhere near. It's like meditation on steroids. So I've been so impressed with the headset, and I always like to tell the audience, I'm like, look, these guys didn't send me one, didn't pay me to do it. I trust certain people, and I trust Skylar's opinion. Skylar is in Flagstaff, Skylar Wilkinson. If anybody wants his contact info, he's like the guy. He'll go in and he'll map your brain. He'll tell you what areas need stimulation. He'll create a protocol for you. Really, really awesome individual. Really tapped into the wellness world. So I trust him. And just yeah, I'm thankful I have a headset. How did you get involved with this? And now you're the CEO of Vital Neuro, yes?
Yes, I am. Yeah. But I'm just one small piece of this great team. I mean, the genius behind this was Dr. Cameron Fallapur, he's a clinical psychiatrist in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And he was seeing regular patients, and he needed a tool that could extend his reach beyond just what he could see in the practice. And he had been he is an innovator in neuroscience. He's an innovator with technology, create a lot of Bluetooth innovations. So I had spent 10 years prior in a leadership role in Exos, kind of in the human performance space. And we had focused on mindset, movement, nutrition, and recovery as 4 big pillars. And the team at Exos, amazing team, had done a lot of great innovations with partners that we had worked with over the years around everything what I call the neck down, right? From the neck down and on the body. But the brain, the human operating system, there was very little to help people get immediate control that would create personalization. It was either pharmaceutical, talk therapy, or fill out a form, some sort of survey that you take. And what I wanted to do was, we knew the science of neurofeedback was really powerful, and Cameron was a leader in that space. Cameron had a partner also that they were working on this pilot headset. They had this headset they were working on to try to bring this to bear. And I was fortunate enough to join the team and bring my kind of operations and technology background. And our goal was to create something. We wanted to be outside of the box of typical neurofeedback. And what I mean by that is something that was so frictionless that you could just slide it on, press a button, and go, right? And you could use it in those moments that you feel overwhelmed. We all feel overwhelmed at times. And in your case, you're talking about meditation, ability to focus, right? Some people have fight or flight and they're dealing with, we wanted to build something that people could just slide on and in a couple minutes get them where they need to be. And we knew for that solution to work, it needed to be highly personalized, right? The brain is very, very unique. Your circumstances of the day are very unique, right? I might go to bed tonight weighing 180 pounds. I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I'm going to weigh 181 at most, right? Maybe 179, but I'm not going to weigh 120. But my mindset might be ideal today on a scale of 1 to 100. I might be an 80 today because I slept well, ate good last night, good weather. I went out and saw the sunshine first thing in the morning, right? Where last Monday when I woke up in the hospital, I would have been a 20, right? So your days vary. Your emotional state varies much greater than your physical state changes. And so to be able to have tools that can understand that emotional state that you're in and uplift you, right? So you talk a lot about homeostasis and getting into balance. That's what Vital First does. Get you into balance, and then we can upregulate to where you want to go. Focus, executive function, state of flow, right? If you're really struggling, then we're going to get you to balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the user at home, I'd like to walk through just a little bit of the connection points on the headset, because it's really interesting. I've got some there's almost like gold connection points on the front of my, almost like my jawline around the earphone, and then I've got these 3 discs on the top of my head. It works out great for me because I'm bald, and it's sitting on my scalp. So I've got all these connection points that are pulling an electrical signal from the headset, and we're getting this conversation with the brain. Can you tell us a little bit about the design of that and what the headset is doing?
Yeah, for sure. I actually have a headset that I can show you here, right? So
Yep. Oh,
you've
great.
got so you got the 3 sensors on the top, and we hold it this way, and then you've got the 2 sensors on here, right? And these two are this is ground. This one here, and the will be my left, and the right is reference, right? So we're getting a referential EEG here, so we know what's the overall EEG in the head. And so you want to understand kind of what is the electrical signature of the overall, what's going on in the brain here. These top ones, PZ, FC, CZ, right? So the front is executive function, right? This is executive function. Here in the middle is focus, and the bottom would be relax, meditate, right? Help you get to sleep, right? So the key thing is you can measure EEG from anywhere. A lot of people like to measure it from the forehead because it's easy, right? And if you have good algorithms to get rid of the noise, because noise here would be like me moving my eyebrows or my big giant forehead that I have, moving that around. But if you want to train the brain well, right? So teach the brain the new neural pathways. You want to train the specific spot that you're trying to target. So if I'm going to get somebody into, like in your case, Freddie, focus, you're going to use this middle sensor. We're going to measure what's happening in your brain at this point of activity and how your brain is responding. So what we do is we capture your EEG right away, and we're constantly monitoring that multiple times a second. As we capture that, we then understand your state of mind by looking at the electrical signature across your entire brain. As we understand that, and you say, I want to get relaxed, or I want to meditate, or I want to get focused, we will then optimize the music to get you to that desired state. So everybody understands there's music that's called psychoacoustically designed. That's music more trained for your brain than your ear, right? It's that white noise, binaural beats. And, you can go into a lot of apps today that'll give you access to that type of music. The thing is, it is very effective, right? But as I mentioned, if you wanted to get the best results, quickest results, particularly if you're having a really bad day, the music, finding your exact tone, frequency, all the different elements that are built into psychoacoustic design music. If we wanted to optimize that for your brain, we'd want to find out what exact frequency you work at, Freddie, which is different than me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody understands alpha, beta, and theta, but what specifically would be the right alpha frequency and tone that will get you where Freddie needs to be, right? To get that dopamine hit that we're trying to get, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Vital and what our unique patent is, we have neuro-responsive music. So we're not just, once the EEG says, okay, Freddie is unfocused, so let's play certain psychoacoustic line music to get him focused. We start there. And then what we do is we then test frequencies to find out what exactly Freddie responds to. And so we're seeing multiple times a second how you're responding to certain sounds and frequencies as we find your exact frequency. Let me just call it your reward tone, what you exactly respond to. Once I find that, we then customize the music throughout the rest of the composition going forward, reinforcing those frequencies that you more respond to, driving you faster and deeper to your desired state. So now the music is responding to you. You now are not just responding to the music.
Yeah. It's been really interesting. I've definitely, there's a couple tools I like. There's a PE method that I use that's very down regulatory called amp coil. There's certain technology I've been playing around with that boost circulation, and it's become my like midday. Most days, it's become like my midday nap or my midday recovery. And I play this 30-minute session, which has like a down regulatory, and then there's something to bring me into like functionality, and then like a focus. So like it brings me back out. So it's almost like the nap, because I'm playing this on the headset, it kind of takes you down and then like brings me. So when I come out of the nap, I'm not, sometimes when you lay down for 30 minutes, for me anyways, I don't know how everybody else in the audience feels, is that I'm done. I'm not going to write any content. I'm not going to go do anything brilliant at work. I'm kind of toasted. But I'll get this nice like 30-minute, okay, I literally feel like I feel refreshed. And that's never been the way I nap. If I nap, especially if it's over 20 minutes, it's like, okay, I'm done for the day. I got to go do something that's very physical. But me being a creator or focusing, personally, like my zone of genius is like 8 a.m. to 1:15. And that's really like where I like to write and create and do interviews. I seldomly will schedule an interview at 3 in the afternoon. Brutal time for me to also do a meeting, which ironically, the big company that I work with in New Zealand, that time schedule, they're like having cups of coffee and they're ready to they're getting all these emails at 2:30 and 3. I was like, oh man, this is brutal for me. But the headset has been really helpful for me. It's been awesome.
Well, I'm really glad to hear it. The team will be excited to hear that. I mean, we encourage people to use it in what works best for them, right? We designed it so you could use it anywhere. Because you think about it, most neurofeedback is done in a very clinical setting, and it's very sterile and it's very controlled. Our sessions, and it's just a little bit over 80% of our sessions, are done what we call in the wild. People are doing it while they're, walking their dog, cooking in the kitchen, right? I do most of mine when I'm sitting there doing emails and strategy work on my computer, and I sit there in the focus mode, and it just allows you to go through without, when you have to plow through your couple hundred emails and you're just mentally exhausted at the end of that. When I
Yeah.
wear the Vital headset throughout, it just keeps me refreshed at the end. The
Yeah.
other thing I like to do is we all get overwhelmed, right? It'll be sitting here at 3:30 in the afternoon. Somebody will open the door and say, "Hey, what do you want for dinner?" And you're like, "Don't ask me. I don't care. Whatever you want. I don't want to have to make another decision." And that's when you can, those transitions of the day, we all need that help to just kind of clear our mind, right? And if you don't mind, I'll tell you a little analogy I like to use about kind of when we think about our brain.
Yeah.
And
Tell
again,
me.
yeah, and you know, Dr. Cameron Fallaport would do a better scientific job, but I'm going to use the analogy of volume since we have headsets on, right? So you think of your brain, and the volume is 0 is low and 10 is high. Okay. So if we think about our brains can't multitask, they weren't engineered to multitask, but we try to multitask all day long in what we do. And so think about my frontal cortex, executive function. Like on this call right now, hopefully that's a 9 or 10. And, I'm engaging with you and, thinking through, all those things. So it's a 9 or 10. Then the middle part, like I'm trying to think about the tasks I needed to do and, I got to follow up on these things, right? That middle is focus and the back, as I said, is relax. If you looked at the brain today compared to what it was 15, 20 years ago, today our frontal cortex will be at a 7, 8. Our focus will be at an 8 or 9, and our back of our brain will be at an 8 or 9. And so the total volume in my head is 26 or 27. But if you go back in time, before we were trying to multitask, before we're sitting here in our computers on a podcast, checking our phone, doing emails, right? Having all these things. When you used to say I could manage stress, when you had jobs 8 to 5, and when you went to work, and home didn't bother you when you were there, right? The volume in your head was an 8 because it would be just executive function. I'm focused on what I'm supposed to be doing. If I'm a programmer, I'm just programming, and my middle is at 8. When your volume's at 27, a couple things happen, right? The side effect of today's society is that when the volume is that loud, first of all, you can't hear yourself think anymore, right? The rational thought in the middle part of your brain doesn't have volume control. It can't outspeak the volume of 27. So that little angel on your shoulder says, "Freddie, don't do this. Hey, Freddie, don't try this." It isn't heard. So when you see people today do crazy things like road rage, or when somebody puts their seat back in front of you on the airplane and you get pissed off and you push it forward, or you get upset in the grocery store, it's not because you didn't have the rational thought, like, let's not overreact. You can't hear that rational thought because your brain is so overstimulated. Right? The other thing is when your brain is that stimulated, just imagine what it's doing with all of the hormones, right? You now have this incredible soup cocktail going on. And I call it, the teenage girl's brain, right? They're hangry, right? 1 minute you're excited, you're ready to go. You say, "Oh, I haven't eaten for 5 hours. I can go." And next minute you're starving, right? You're sleepy. So then people have a tendency to then, have to upregulate because they can't control it. So they take more caffeine, more different ways to elevate so they can keep everything. So the whole volume just gets louder and louder, and we lose in that game, right? And what you hear from people when they put the Vital headset on, our goal is to take that volume, whatever it is, now in the 20s to 0. And what people say is, it's the first time in a long time I've heard my breath. I can actually feel my heartbeat in my heart, in my chest, because the volume is so loud you can't hear those things. And that's what we all need. That's how I start my day, is get to that homeostasis that you talk about, get that balance, get it to 0. and then decide where do I want to go and upregulate, controlling that one part instead of all parts. And that's the story I like to tell, is like the volume is too loud in our brains. That's why, Freddie, we all feel so overwhelmed. You know, I always say to myself, what's your title? Well, I'm now the new VP of overwhelm, right? And so many mothers, executives, sports, athletes, everybody is just feeling overwhelmed. And we built Vital. There's a lot of things it can do, and we can talk about it. But the biggest thing is I wanted you to go from being overwhelmed to just be Freddie, nice and calm. And then you decide where you go.
Yeah. I think you landed on it. We decide where we go. Like if we can't get there to this place of momentarily, I think every day, once I like to do this to check in, right? Post ice bath, I have a really nice window of like, I'm here. I'm here. It brings me present. You know,
Yeah.
I think people really get lost in the weeds. I was thinking about this morning and like, God, the influencers telling you that ice baths are good or bad or black or white. I was like, everybody's missing the point. You are a biological being who evolved in harsh, cold weather. This practice puts you back in that ancestral, holy shit, I'm in a cold river. Nothing out, the body has nothing else to think about besides getting warm. The idea that it is harmful, that an ice bath is harmful or going to be your savior, I think totally lost in the sauce. This is something that brings us back. So that's like a practice, right? That I'll do most days. So funny. I cleaned it last night. It's like I went out. I always like start the morning, cold plunge, hot shower, cold plunge. I have an outdoor shower, and that's my morning. I'm getting the morning light. It's just so good. I was so bummed. I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't feel it last night. But multiple times through the day, whether it's doing something like the Neurovital, or it's the cold, or it's a warm bath, or it's a flow presso, more and more, like I need this like palate cleanser throughout the day.
Right.
And it is such a superpower. It's such a superpower. I really think it's like we were talking a little bit about how do you have discernment in this world of like so much inflammation. We are inflamed. Information and just opinions, right?
Yeah.
You don't know who to believe or who to trust. But doing some of these things and knowing the ability that it is the mind, it is the supercomputer that is repairing proteins. It is deciding to let go of garbage in the brain. It is deciding to repair DNA damage. Or the brain is like, it's all it's doing. We're in complete survival mode. And so it is this net practice. Like, I'm going to go back to this. Should rebrand the podcast Health as a Practice. It is the daily practice, day after day after day after day, in which in a year, you won't know, you will not believe the change you've made. But it's this like, it's like educating. It's educating the end user. It's like, guys, this is not do this headset 3 times. Be like, oh, it worked. It didn't work. It works like brushing your teeth works. It works like doing bicep curls. Your biceps will grow. Your mind will grow. Only if we use the thing.
Right.
Only if we use the thing. So not that we have to have the headset, but I would just say to this volume conversation is really interesting to me. Like this idea that we have like the 7 on the prefrontal cortex, 8 in the midbrain, 8, 9 in the back. So we get this net like 27 of just lots of stuff going on at the same time and trying to bring us back to 0. You know what else does it for me? This has been wild. Fly fishing.
Fly fishing? Wow.
Fly fishing. Because I've always fished with like, I grew up in upstate New York with a bobber and a pole. We went like out on the bass boat, right? Or we'd, casting a reel or fly fishing. It's this art of like, you're working the line and you're just focusing on like, you're watching it move through the water and you're watching the current and you can't think about anything else.
Right.
If you do, you miss the fish. The 2 times I've been fly fishing this summer, shout out to my good friend Arnie Erickson up in Bozeman, who is like helped me get on this two of these fly fishing floats down the Yellowstone. And I'd get off there and I'd be like, I wouldn't notice it till I got off the boat. And I'm like, I feel like I did plant medicine. I
Wow.
am so blissed out right now because it's just this act of the one, right? And so because I can't afford to do that all the time, how do I figure out what is my fly fishing midday? And that's been a Vital Neuro has been fabulous for that.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
First of all, just as a side note, I'm not a great fly fisher, but I do have similar experience in Middle Fork of the Salmon River. If you can get somebody to take you there in Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
incredible place to go. Just I think it's the largest continuous wildlife preserve in the continental United States, and the fly fishing is amazing in the Middle Fork. Yeah, those rituals that you talk about are really important, and sticking with it. There's a gentleman, BJ Fogg, professor out of Stanford, who's written quite a bit around motivation and behavior change, and he's got some really really interesting ideas. And I'm a big believer in his kind of behavior happens when there's a motivation, right? There is ability and a prompt. And so many times we think it's about motivation. Why aren't I doing something? Because I'm not motivated. And in reality is, do I think I have the ability? And I think that's always the challenge, right? Can I do it, right? And that's one reason why with Vital it was simple, like, hey, just put the headphone on, press a button. To you, fly fishing you can't just go do unless you and I lived in Montana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Necessarily. But finding things that are easy, like cold plunge, right? That there's different ways to do cold plunge. I live in Chicago, so you get water out. You get our tap water coming right out of the system here is 51 degrees. It's not perfect cold plunge, but it's plenty cold enough
Oh,
just
that's
to put the
plenty
cold
cold.
on. Yeah,
Plenty
and
cold.
so yeah, so it's easy cold plunge for me, cold shower, to be able to do that. So finding things that are uh, um, that you believe you have the ability, and then the prompt, building a routine, like the looking up at the sun in the morning, I find very helpful for me. I just enjoy, and trust me, these last 4 days, we open the blinds in the bedroom. I look outside, and because of what happened, I'm even more grateful. I look outside and see, the sun outside, and just to look outside and just to take that couple minutes, I literally just stand out, look out the window, and just have that moment of reflection and gratitude to have that. Um, I'm also a big believer in power in vibration therapy. So
Mm-hmm.
I like, for me, the power plate, right? So, when you have the orthopedic issues I have, you know, people think warming up is about stretching, and a lot of times it's about stimulating the nervous system. And now I've thought a couple times this week when I get on the power plate, what is that doing to the surgery I just had? Like, am I going to shake something
I'm
loose?
gonna shake a stent loose.
But vibration therapy, and there's so many great things out there, and Freddie, you've talked about so many of them over the years, but there's so many great things. Finding the ones that work for you, that fit into your routine, that you can create a habit around, that you have the ability, you can create a prompt to that and do that. I think we all win, right? You start, like you say, you start with one, get that
Mm-hmm.
going, and then add another one, add another one. And if something doesn't fit in, it's okay, try something else. But I think we need to be willing to experiment with it, and there's no silver bullet. No one thing's going to do everything,
Mm-mm.
right? But the accumulation of doing these good things will make you a much more resilient person, a much more positive person, and you're going to have a lot more success as you define success.
That's right. Yeah, I just the audience is gonna be tired about me mentioning it, but I've got this machine in the last 2 months called the Bimini, which is nanobubbled oxygen therapy, which turns your bathtub into an oxygen bath. Like it is 300% times more oxygen, stable oxygen in the water, and because of the a thing called the zeta potential in physics. You get these nanobubbles absorbed transdermally. And so in a society, and this is all working theory. I just put out a Substack article on it. It's all working theory. But in a society that is sympathetically dominant, and we're not deep belly breathing, when we're breathing 26, 22, 25 times a minute, the microvasculature of the body is what suffers. So we get oxygen where we need it from an external potential, and we're in a bath. You're not in a hard metal tube that's pressurized and is very expensive, very clunky. I always wanted a hyperbaric chamber when I was really sick with Lyme. I wanted one. I couldn't afford it. There was a really good clinic in Jersey. It was like $80 to get there, $200, $220 a session. They said do 40 sessions, and then, by the way, if you stop coming, your symptoms will come back. So it didn't fit into my bank account, didn't fit into my I didn't have the time to do it. And now I see things like this come along. I'm like, wait, we can have an impact on tissue saturation in the quad and the brain in 25 minutes. Yeah. Like, this fits into life, just like a headset. I can wear the Vital Neuro to the gym. I can put on Focus or Flow or whatever I want to put on, and I can do my workout. Right. That's been a fun one. And nobody really looks at you like you're crazy. It sort of looks like wow, this guy's headset looks a little weird, but I'm okay with that. But you really do get into the flow, right? The downside is we've all been at the gym lately, and you're like, there's a guy on like, I want to do isolating, to your point. I want my quad, my VMO to be strong. I'm doing like isolating quad exercises, and some guy's there like for 20 minutes on his phone, like stuck in his social media. I'm like, hey, like, brother, can I get in there? Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's on their phone at the gym.
Yeah.
And what a great thing just to get lost in like good music and a workout. Again, another moment of like, if you're working hard enough, if you get to that, and a lot of people, I talk about this in the training academy, that we don't really understand what work is. Like, unless you've had a great trainer, like most people are I watch people in the gym, they're counting reps.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're counting reps. They're like, oh, there's my 10, there's my 12. No.
Right.
No, you wait till you can't move that weight, as long as it's a safe extension, closed or open chain. But if you get to a point where you can't move it, there is a psychological thing that happens in your body where it's like, talk about a beneficial state, right? That is very therapeutic. But it fits into your lifestyle. So I'll join with you. I'm always like, what's realistic? What am I going to do? What can I see other people actually embracing? Right. I can see people embracing, to your point, getting up with the morning sun. Like, just take your puppy for a walk without the damn phone. A bath, cold plunge is phenomenal. I think anytime we can bring in these elements of community, we do these Sunday community days in Austin, South Austin Wellness Project at my house. So we have this big 3-house property, and we have a big 12-person sauna and a cold plunge. We make paleo muffins for everybody, and everybody comes over on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And it's this great sense of community. It's not about the wellness gear that we're doing. It's just we're all getting the upgrade, but you get all these beneficial neurotransmitters released as a result of this connection that we're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think that sense of community and the willingness to experiment, right? We wellness isn't, at least when I grew up in the medical space, it's right or wrong. It works or it doesn't work. And what we have to realize is that we're all so unique human beings, and our lives are very complicated. And so you got to find things that work for you and work in your world, and you got to be comfortable with experimenting. When I started lifting weights after my knee surgery, met Mark Verstegen. He's just a brilliant guy when it comes to all these different ways that you could work out. And I would do simple RDLs, right? And I'm thinking I'm doing well, and I'm adding weight, and now I can do a little more extra reps. And what he taught me was, first of all, experiment a little bit, and also you can work much more efficient, right? So all of a sudden you can do an RDL, and now you're standing, instead of on a flat floor, you're standing on a pad, or you're standing on an upside down Bosu ball. You're pulling it with a Kaiser cable, right? And now you're engaging not just the your glute, but your core, your shoulder, everything, right? Simple thing like doing dumbbells, right? We can all do dumbbells, and we're all taught keep your elbows close to your side. Try to do a dumbbell on one leg. Get in an athletic position, slight bent knee to the ground, the other knee up at 90 degrees, and try doing a dumbbell that way. Now you're going to engage your core, your breathing changes, everything. And what I say to that is, it's not what's right. There's always a lot to learn about what to do, but experiment and find out what gets you where you need to go. And it's I think it's exciting, all the things, right? And if you can find sources of information like yourself that can help people ferret through how to apply it. But the biggest thing is just go out and try it, right? And find, because guess what? You're going to awaken yourself. You know, uh, uh, for me, that's been the journey that I've enjoyed, is meeting, people like yourself that expose us to so many different ideas. And then you find what you can work in your life, and then you find your life changing. I've totally transformed my routine, how I grew up, what I used to do and what I do today. And it's been through these small micro changes, experimenting what works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. It makes a lot of sense to me and I think about this problem, or the opportunity to navigate this for people. It's like, what do we need to orchestrate to get you, like, remove some of the blockades, especially with behavior change. And I think you could make a really strong case for turning down, this net noise in the brain, so we can figure out what we want. I think it's a really good case to say, I'm not saying, and I do have a really mixed feelings about, like, a good diet or the bad diet or whatever. But if you could just say, okay, just for 2 months, I'm just going to eat food that goes rotten. That's your whole paradigm. Just go eat food that's good. Nothing out of a bag, right? Do chicken and fish and grass-fed beef and vegetables and fruit and nuts. You want to take it up a notch. You want to unlock some of the core components of your food. Add spices and herbs, right? That elevate. We get the olfactory areas of the brain starting to get fired up, and we get really good smells. Just do that. Just clear out, like, the garbage, and you'd probably have a terrain which is better set up for success to take that next step, which may be like a comprehensive training program, or maybe you want to experiment with a fast, or maybe you want to learn about lymphatic drainage. I think they're all necessary, but if I were to take everything that I think about health and I'm like, here's my 130-page manual, most people are not going to get there. It's like, how do we build on, like, these foundational core principles?
Yeah. So Freddie, it's interesting. Hearing you speak, it really recalls back. I think setting the right goals are really important.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking to a lot of folks, we set very unrealistic goals. We either look at other people and we set our goals based on what we see other people do, or we set things that just aren't achievable. I'll use an easy one: weight loss, right? I'm going to lose 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Well, losing 20 pounds is really hard. It really is hard to lose 20 pounds. Now, when you know all the things that maybe you and I have experienced and done, and you have our lifestyle, it's not hard. Okay. But if you're starting from flat footed, it'd be like saying, okay, John, I'm going to throw you in an NBA game. I know how to shoot a basket, right? I was somewhat athletic, not anymore, right? But I wouldn't stand a chance in making a basket in an NBA game. And for most people, that would be the analogy of trying to lose 20 pounds because life is against you, what you eat is against you, how you sleep, how you're stressed, how you
Yeah.
think of exercise, right? Most people
Yeah.
think, oh, if I don't have an hour, I can't work out. Well, if you give me 5 minutes, right? I tell the average person gets out of a chair 40 times a day. Well, don't use your arms to push yourself out of the chair. Now you've just done 40 squats, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you have to start somewhere. And so what's setting that first goal is really important. So I'll take it back. We mentioned like Everest, right? Like I grew up in Chicago, right? After I had my transplant, I went to my doctor and said, "Hey, what do you want to do?" He said, "No ballistic moves." So, kind of got rid of basketball or any kind of that. I said, "How about climb a mountain?" And he thought I meant a bluff in Wisconsin. I really didn't know what I meant, but I wanted to climb something real, right? I pictured like I wanted to like accomplish something. But my real goal was I wanted to play with my kids. I had young kids at the time. I couldn't even go to the grocery store and walk in the store. I was too painful.
Mm.
I watch them in the backyard. And what I wanted to do was play with my kids. And that was my first goal, which meant I needed to have energy to do that. I needed to reduce pain to do that. And so it was about inflammation and energy, right? It didn't matter what I weighed, right? And so it was thinking about that approach of how do I manage pain and how do I get rid of inflammation for myself? And as you get rid of inflammation, you get energy, right? So, but I didn't know these things, but starting with the right goals. And then what happens is, so I didn't go from, oh, I want to, I had transplant, I want to go climb Everest. I laddered up that as I went and as I had success. And what I really learned from that was setting the right goals, right? Changing small behaviors every day that, like I said, that are achievable and that I could have a practice around them, right? Simple things. And then I surrounded myself with people who fed me energy.
Mm.
People who, because trust me, when I walked into my work, right at that time, I was as operations leader for an insurance company. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go climb Everest." People weren't like, yeah, they're, it was like, wait a minute, people would say, what about your kids? Aren't you worried that you're going to kill yourself for your kids? Aren't
Mm.
you, how do you have time? It's dangerous, right? You don't get that support. So you've got to surround yourself with people who really have your best interest at heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
They ask the tough questions. But for me, that's what I found is, anything that I've been able to achieve in life, it's been because of the great people around me, right? What I went through last week, if it wasn't for Kristen, my spouse, I wouldn't have been anywhere where I was, right?
Yeah.
And we have to realize that because in today's world, it's pretty lonely.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of community is a challenge in today's world for a lot of people. The way we work from home, the fact that we're all moving around, a lot of the fabric of our community isn't there. And finding great people that can help
Mm-hmm.
you, that's really that's a wellness tactic that you should follow,
Mm.
right? So, anyways, those are just some of the things that I've learned over the years that like enable me to discover the things that you share and how we can apply them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. We're so lucky to have this. I say it all the time. We're so lucky to have the community that we have here in Austin. It's
Hmm.
really phenomenal, especially the world of wellness. There's some great people here, great companies based here. Um, People are very willing to get together and have the backdrop be, breath work or sauna or an outdoor fitness class. It's really it's a special town. It's a special town. I think about, the heat here is wild. It's oppressive in the summer. Um, and at the same time, this is like a diamond as far as like the opportunity to build community. I know you can do it anywhere. I know you can do. I dream of my hometown is like between Rochester and Buffalo. I always think because there's nothing like, you could go out in Austin. There's like 12 centers, which have every piece of cool tech and all the things in the world. But I've often thought that like doing this somewhere like Rochester or Buffalo would be incredible, because they're great blue collar towns. They don't have anything like this. It's really like an unknown. It'd be really interesting if I get really brave, I might do it.
I think that would be highly invigorating.
Yeah.
It's I'm known for taking on challenges.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I'm just envisioning you there in Rochester, right? And just how do you start that conversation, right? How do you
Yeah.
spark that interest,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, I thought about this actually. The hospital that I was treated at was it was Strong. Now they changed it was Golisano Children's Hospital, Strong Memorial. And there's this great area up there, and it's like just around the hospital's massive. It's a teaching hospital, and it's huge. It's acres and acres. But I thought right around the hospital would be a great spot to buy a house that had almost convert an old barn for like the wellness space. Have a big community sauna, big community cold plunge, big community hot tub, and just that's all it is. It's a club. It's literally a wellness club. And you just price it so people can, as opposed to the Friday night cocktails, you go do the wellness thing. There's a great space in New York City called Othership. And they've really done it on a huge scale. There's one in Toronto, there's two in New York called Othership. And it's just breath work and a tea lounge and a community sauna and cold plunges. And it's big, so they have stadium seating, so you get 45, 50 people at a time.
Wow.
It's awesome. Great music. Instructors are leading you. There's men's groups, there's singles night, there's, women only nights. And it's just really like, they're pretty maxed out. Like every hour on the hour, there's another wave of 40, 45 people come in. And because people, to your point, they're lonely and they are really searching for this better sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And the business does a sliver of that, right? But I think at the community level, there's more opportunity for that. And that's where we're kind of building this here. We're doing our first event December 5th in Austin called the South Austin Wellness Project. Where I just literally you're invited, by the way, December 5th. We got all these great thought leaders, got people coming from New Zealand and people coming from Houston and people coming from Miss Martha Carlin, who is one of the, she was on a couple of weeks ago. She's the accountant who opened up a lab and got funded by the NIH and changed the face of Parkinson's.
Poop lady?
The poop lady. She's like, can I come? I was like, hell yeah, get a ticket. But the whole thing was to invite all these companies and do it for like $75.
Uh-huh.
And just do like a 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's an extension of what we do every single Sunday. But what if we invited Flowpresso and Amp Coil and, Martha's the Quest Biotics, and we just had no forced panels, no talks. It's just a big old food, high-end coffee, snacks, and we're going to do a community, and we're just all going to share, and we're going to have all these treatment rooms set up. So we're doing event number 1, December 5th.
That's exciting. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, people need to be, they've got to be open and experiment, right? And but if you can help teach them how to set the right goals, because that really don't overshoot what the goal is, right? Because when you walk around, like in my circles here, I live in the Chicagoland area, and the number of people in their 40s and 50s that are looking for solutions today, right? As we spoke before the podcast, I was sharing with you, like, people have now, we're starting to pay the consequences for our lifestyle, good and bad, right? You start to have some financial freedom, but then you start to have all these compensatory movement patterns that you've paid the price for, right? I always say you deficit spend in life, and you just try to be aware of where you are, because you're gonna have to solve for it at some point. And they're looking for solutions. They're looking for ideas. And I just try to encourage people to say, try simple things, find people who are willing to share, build a community, talk. Um, you know, I've got a great group of friends that we just love to talk about, being transparent about what I'm dealing with. What are you dealing with? Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have complex lives. I was once shared that when you get to my age, which for me, I'm in my late 50s here, right? Really late 50s. And the complexity of our lives, because we have our parents are depending on us, our children still need us, right? You're usually in some sort of career transition and you're in a health transition at this age. All of
Mm-hmm.
that puts a big burden on how do you balance it and how do you make these life choices. We've been
Yeah.
kind of, in a flow here. It's like, whoa, a lot of change right now and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And that creates stress. And so how do you seek answers for that?
Yeah.
Where do you go get those answers?
Yeah. 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 That's the $1 million question.
So how do you solve that, Freddie?
I mean, I start with me. I figure it out for myself. I
Uh-huh.
stop going outside myself to solve it for other people, which is probably my number one piece of offered device. When people are like, I want to change the world. I was like, look in the mirror, baby. What are you going to
Yeah,
do? Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
How am I going
Yeah.
to, how am I going to communicate with my Uber driver? How am I going to slow down and just really look people in the eye for a moment and be like, hey, what do you need? What do you need right now?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's kind of how I'm doing it. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
how I'm doing it. It does take both, right? We do have to put on the oxygen mask for ourselves first,
Right.
before we go run away, try to do it. Again, the world doesn't need another startup in the wellness space. Honest and truly, it needs collaboration.
Mhm.
It needs collaboration with a lot of these technologies. So
And
yeah,
compassion.
and the passion, yeah, yeah. We're definitely at the end of our hour, John. Um, we have a code for Vital Neuro. I know we do. Beautifully Broken is a code. You can get a discount on the headset. We definitely want to have somebody else back from the team, and go. Well, we should do niche down really, really, really just on the technology and how it unfolds. But your story is fabulous. The company is so lucky to have you. We're lucky that you're still here. Oh, what a week!
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm breathing with you. Um, what can I do to help you? Let me ask you that.
I think keep spreading the word that, everybody matters. We like to say it vital, be vital. You are vital. And what we try to do is vitalize people. And so just recognize that that's important, that you are vital. And, I think from our standpoint, getting the message out that if you can just give yourself peace of mind each day and give yourself control, get control, because then you can make good choices. You
Mm-hmm.
can do the things that are important, right? So helping us spread that word, we're what is why we created Vital, is to give people space to be able to make the choices that they know they want to make. Give them the space, in this very loud noise, that 27 volume that I talk about. Let's turn that volume down so that you can focus where you need to be, what's important, where you
Yeah.
matter, right?
Can I ask you a technical question? Because we didn't touch on this, but within the headset and the app, I have a history, so I can
Mm-hmm.
see how many sessions I've done, total minutes. It lets me know if I'm on a streak that week. It's like, Freddie, keep up your streak. Do you see performance stats on people's brains over time with the app? Can you see what the changes, especially now, you whatever your user group is, right? Do we see entrainment and improved functionality of this Nat 27 noise coming down over time?
Yeah, so we have vitality indexes. So we have for your ability to improve in focus, sleep, and relaxation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can see that if you go under training section, there's a benchmark So you can run a benchmark session, and then we encourage people to run them every 30 days, and they're going to show you how you've improved in each of those metrics. So you
Great.
can see that. And then we work with different populations. So think about military, think about corporate populations, and we work with people who are coaches who have their own population. And we're able to provide additional detailed metrics, right? So we can show you from the neurophysiological change that's occurring over time, right?
Awesome.
So yeah, like our number one use case is something we didn't think when we created this, and that is the pre-medical space. So think there's 1.2 billion procedures in the United States where somebody's going in to have oral surgery, LASIK, cataracts, you have an infusion, a procedure where you're awake for it, but you're highly stressed. And what we now have is hospital systems and physicians that actually have Vital sitting there. When you go to the pre-op space, you slide the headphone on, they press a button, and we'll get you to a level of Valium in about 11 minutes, nice and relaxed, so that the people are there. And so we start to see this data. One, we get to see how people have, doctors say, well, they're only in the waiting room 10 minutes. I can trust you. It's more than 40 minutes on average that people wait for procedures. But we can see the brain data, right? So we have that brain data and we can see that change. And I think, we'd love, you asked what you could do. We'd love to connect with somebody who's got great data about the body, right? And let's bring the brain and body data together, because that'll tell a powerful story for people.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a total light bulb moment that in the coaching space, this would be phenomenal for coaches to be using with clients. Would there be a dashboard that was accessible and so we could see? I think that's one of the things in this space of human optimization and longevity or improvement of your position. Can you show me from a data-driven viewpoint what is changing? A lot of times it's hard to do that. There's a lot of moving parts. This would be an example where we have a clean enough reading where I think that would be very powerful in the coaching space.
Yeah, so we launched a coaching platform about 2 months ago now. And what we're able to do so if you have a client, it could be in the spiritual space, the wellness space, it could be in the clinical, like psychiatric space, where you're trying to help a patient or client improve, we can show them how fast, or excuse me, how deep they change their state of mind. So how deep do they go? How fast can you change it? Once they get there, how resilient are they? And then what's the cumulative impact? So I can get you from a 0 to a 5 in your level of relaxation, right? How fast can I get you there? How deep can I get you there? And once you get there, how do you stay there? Right. If you look at most people's sine wave out of Vital, it'll be very spiky, because they get to a certain peak and then they think about something that distracts them. And then they get in again. So our goal is to get those spikes up as high as possible. Once they get their plateau and stay, everybody always drops out, but when you drop, just drop a little bit before we bring you back. So that's
right.
what we're trying to measure. So we can provide that information to a coach now for all their clients. Is, how fast, how deep, how resilient are they?
Yeah. For the investment, it's a really good ROI. Like really good. I mean, I can tell you all the things. My brain goes to all the precision functional medicine clinics I've been to where I paid, I don't know, anywhere for $25,000 a year just to be under that person's care, not treatments. And we're pulling levers on hormones and supplementation and infusions and movement, whatever the lever we're pulling. But what the person does at home, in their little isolated cubicle, that's the long-term change. We can always send somebody to the moon into these peak states, but do we fall below baseline, or is there improvement over time? I think
Right.
that's a lot of the tech. It's hard to show that. You know, and
Mhm.
again, do you want to be plugged into a machine or nebulizing some gas, or ideally you want to get back to life,
Right.
precious
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be able to do it when you need it, not when you can schedule it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what we try to do is you can, the headphone is meant that you can wear it in life and in the wild. And, uh, what we see, it's interesting that our patients and our clients have taught us is we have clients that have run, we're talking thousands of sessions a year, right? So they run 3 or 4 sessions a day. And what we've seen in the military as we work with folks, particularly veterans who have dealt with PTSD or traumatic brain injury, um, they were going to a place where they were getting wired wired EEG or wired neurofeedback, and they could go once or twice a month based on the cost and access. And now they can run Vital 4 or 5 times a day when they need it. And so that the fact that, like anything, the more training you can do, the better the outcome.
Yeah.
So
Literally
these
like
are
a few bucks a day, right? A couple bucks a day.
Yeah, our typical client ends up paying about $1 a session, just to give you an idea.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, I appreciate you. Amazing podcast. And I know we're probably going to do it again.
Yeah, Freddie, thank you so much for everything you do. Like I say this genuinely. I love listening to you. That your energy is infectious, and you bring just a real genuineness to this space, and that's really important. You humanize it for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I accept your compliment. Have a
Yeah.
beautiful day, John.
You too. Take
Big
care.
love.